Well, I'm excited to have Will Thompson with us this morning. He is the founder and president of Bullseye Recruiting, and he has helped organizations such as eBay and Dell and Balfour and Rosetta Stone in identifying and hiring top talent from around the globe. He started out as a blog in August of 2012, and it morphed into a full-blown recruiting agency in March of 2015. So he helps companies find key hires in sales, marketing, and HR. He's been in recruiting and sales for over 20 years, and he has a passion for helping companies grow and build organizations with the best available talent. And he is a friend of yours because he's a friend of mine. He loves job seekers. He loves helping job seekers and has a real passion for just seeing you excel and do well in your job search. And so, Will, thank you for sponsoring Job Seekers Network, and thank you for being a friend of ours. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming out this morning and listening. I appreciate it. After Super Bowl Sunday, when Craig told me this, he's like, I was thinking, in December, Super Bowl's the day before. Anybody Eagles fans? Anybody? Okay. Yay, Eagles, right? Nick Foles won, which was cool. I went to Westlake, and that was kind of neat to see somebody from Westlake win. The coolest thing about the Super Bowl was when the coach got on board and said, hey, listen, you've been in coaching for, high school coaching 9 years ago, how do you feel about winning the Super Bowl? And he goes, I want to tell you that first and foremost, I thank the Lord our Savior, Jesus Christ. So, that to me means more than anything. So it was cool to see the Eagles win. But thanks, Craig, for introducing me. We're going to talk about something that is a very difficult topic. It's going to be interactive. I hope you guys brought a pen and notes because you're going to learn a lot of stuff today. This is not a feel-good presentation, an inspirational one. This is going to give you some hardcore information about how to negotiate your salary, how to navigate through the offer process, and help you find the job with the money that you need to be successful. Because bottom line is, money is important, and it's a key part of our lives, correct? Right. And we can't live without it. So a little bit about me. Like Craig said, I've been in corporate recruiting. I've been an agency recruiter and in sales. This is my 23rd year of doing this kind of stuff. So at any time during the presentation, if you guys say, hey, you want to ask, I'm your friend, raise your hand and we'll just talk, okay? I'm gonna get you guys very involved. I'm gonna hand the microphone to you. I may even have you on stage. So this is gonna be, if you're tired from the Super Bowl or anything like that, you're going to wake up real quickly with me. So the thing about Bullseye, it started as a blog and then became a business. I was really proud of the fact that just writing things down 5 years ago has turned into a business, and I recruit sales, HR people. I'm a Christian, first and foremost. I love to hunt. I did some really cool hunts last year. I went to Nicaragua. I went to South Dakota. So those are some cool things about me. I'm from Austin, like I said, and it's really cool to be in the city of Austin. I have a couple of kids. I have a 10-year-old. This is my family. That's my wife, Laura. My daughter's Kennedy. She's home with the flu today. I hope you guys haven't had the flu. And then my son is going to be 7 here in Cinco de Mayo. But the blog has been mentioned in a number of magazines and things like that, so that's kind of cool. But that's a little bit about me. So let's talk about where we are today. And I need for everybody to kind of think about this. There are more jobs out there than there are available people that have the exact skill sets. The unemployment rate today in Austin is 2.7%. That's really, really, really low. The Dow is at the all-time high. It's crazy. It's almost at 26,000, which is a lot better than it was in 2008. So let me just set the stage that, there's a lot of people employed today. The problem that we're having is that a lot of the companies are still paying market value. So they're thinking, we're still going to be able to pay, this amount of money for somebody, and they're probably working. Candidates out there that are working are still, from what I'm experiencing, wanting 20, 30% increases. It's not happening. So in addition, we're having 175 people move into this city a day. That's really alarming, isn't it? So that's your competition. This is the reality of the situation in 2018, which is hard to think about. So who has the upper hand? Do candidates have the upper hand, or do employers have the upper hand? Employers? Candidates. Here's the thing. They both think they do. And that's the hard point. And here I am in the middle going, whoa, man, come on. We need a recession almost. Both you guys are wrong. I mean, employers think, they gave you all that information. And candidates like, look, you need me, right? I'm the one that is going to employ you. So there's this constant battle between companies and employers. What I've seen a lot this year and last year are people rejecting jobs, not saying that's not enough money. I've seen people that are canceling interviews. I've seen companies have jobs open for months. Have you guys seen that? I mean, long periods of time, 6 months. So even though all those facts that I showed you, there's still all these situations that are occurring in the marketplace today. So I'm going to ask you over and over and over today, I don't care what everybody else is saying, what do you want to do? This is the bottom line. What do you want to do for a living? Because that's what we're going to narrow in today, and we're going to talk about, okay, if this is what you're going to do, what you want to do, then how are you going to get there? Okay? I put something on LinkedIn not too long ago that said, I love my job. If you're miserable at your job, get out and do something different. I think it had a little over 20,000 views. It's like pouring gasoline on all your stuff. You're like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. This is just not fun for me. Who's in that situation? Just absolutely hate their job. Life's too short. We don't need that. So we're going to take this thing. We're going to take it from top to bottom. All right. Let's talk about researching roles. What transferable skills do you have? And I've talked about this in a lot of different presentations in the past. I had a friend that was a watchmaker. He had all these great skills of making watches, but he was unable to do anything else. Lo and behold, he had a lot of skills that were product manager type skills. He was out of work for a year until I actually said, okay, look, you do have product management skills, let's get you a product manager job. So he started looking at product manager jobs. He had an interview within 3 weeks. So what skills are out there that you have that are transferable? Find out what's available in the marketplace too. There's a plethora of some jobs, and there's also some jobs that, that you got skills you may have that quite honestly aren't being hired for it today. Who's in that situation? It's happening. There's a lot of industries out there that are dying. I mean, that you may be a part of that we need to get out of, right? What if you want to get into artificial intelligence? I mean, that's a hot buzzword today, right? Or let's get into healthcare, which is really hot right now. Nurses are shortage. There's a lot of different type of positions that are out there that are in high demand, and there's a lot of jobs out there that are not in demand at all. So we need to realize what the market's like and then really attack what we can go after. Because if you keep beating your head against the wall for an industry that's dead, it's not going to work. Once you find out what industries are hiring and what fits best for you, like the last slide, who are the competitors? And once you find out the competitors, you can really go after them. I've told this story a number of times, but one time I wanted to go into the home building industry, so I interviewed a number of companies, finding out which would be the best fit for me. And then I went after the best of the best. And when I interviewed with the company, they said, "Why do you want to work for me?" And I said, "Well, I've talked to everybody, and they told me that you were the best, and I want to work for the best." So that's how important research is. All right. Have anybody sat down with a pen and paper and said, "This is what I need to survive"? Because I got to tell you, this is the most important piece of the whole puzzle. So, what do you need to keep up your current lifestyle? What is the number? You need to pay electricity. You need to pay your phone. You need to live in your house. You got your kids in high school. What do you need to do to keep them in the same school? What are all these things? What is your number? There may need to be some adjustments. You may need to move. You may need to move into a smaller house. You may need to downsize. You need to know what people pay for. But you need to know what you could realistically live on. What is the number that you need to absolutely have? God gives us a lot of chances to give us exactly what we want at the right times. He will provide. So, what cutbacks could you make? My wife and I were in some trouble in 2007, and we were like, okay, so we really don't need cable. We don't need this internet, this high speed. We don't need this. These are things that we can take care of that are just not that important right at the specific moment in time. Probably don't need a country club membership. We probably don't need this nice car. We could probably don't, there's things we could live without. You need to think about those things. Travel's a big deal. So how much can you travel? If people ask you, I want you on the road 50% of the time and you're newly married or, you physically can't do it, you need to know that. Can anybody think of any other considerations when you're thinking of, when you're thinking about your number? Commute's a huge one, right? For me, I live in North Austin. You couldn't pay me $1 million to go to work downtown. It doesn't make sense. Anything else? What's that? Yeah, benefits. We'll talk a bunch about that in a minute. Benefits are huge. So how do you find out what people are paying? Anybody heard of salary.com? No, who said no? All right. Salary.com is a site that shows, how much money's been paid in each market. So let's just say, you want to look for a project manager. You put project manager Austin, Texas, and say, hey, it gives you a range. And then it tells you your skills. And based upon these skills, you fit at this level, right? The other day, I was doing a search for a search engine marketing manager. And there was not one single role that was under, the salary.com for that role. So I had to think of different roles, and then I had to put in their skill sets. But it gives you an idea of what people are paying in Austin, right? So also ask your peers, it's like interviewing the competitors. It's like, okay, so what do you make? Okay, so you're doing this job. I understand you're making this amount of money. What kind of skills do you have? You need to know these things. You need to know what people are paying. Understand the skill set you're going after and what you may need to have to fill the role. So if there's some skills gaps that you need to figure them out. What do you bring to the table? Understand junior and senior roles. And then we talk about also, to your point, benefits, stock, and all those things. And we're going to go into that in a minute. So we're going to spend a ton of time on the phone interview. All right? What people are going to ask, it sets the stage for everything. If you say something wrong in the phone interview, then it's going to set your stage for the entire interview process. Who agrees with that? Does everybody know what to say in the phone interview, or you kind of get scared every time that happens? Because a lot of people get terrified by this thing. I'm going to tell you exactly what they're going to ask every single time, and I'm going to tell you how to answer it. Does that sound fair? All right. Because if you can get past this thing, your interview process is cakewalk, right? All right. What happens? Who answers their phone with a number they don't know? Stop. I'm the only guy that's going to tell you that, but I'm telling you, if if you're in the market and someone's calling you and you don't know the number, let it go to voicemail. The reason I'm telling you that is because they're going to ask you questions that you may not be prepared for. If you need to, when you call them back, make sure you're in a quiet place. Make sure you're not shopping in Macy's or at a kid's soccer game. But set up time to talk with them. Everything I do is by appointment only, right? So I usually send an email. I'll send a text, whatever you got to do. But I will set up a time so I know I have your undivided attention at that specific amount of time. Who cancels interviews and calls back? Guys, please, 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 please don't cancel an interview. If you set a time with a recruiter, if you set a time with a hiring manager, make sure you stick to it. I understand things happen, but man, I got to tell you, I've heard some of the most ridiculous cancellations in the past 2 years, especially last year and this year. It's going to set you way down the totem pole. Not as much for a recruiter as it will for a hiring manager. I've heard people set interviews, face-to-face interviews with individuals last year that said, you know what, something came up on my schedule, I can't do it, within 12 hours. It looks really bad. If you do cancel an interview, expect not to get called back, ever. Not that things don't happen. Look, the other day we had the ice storm the other day. It was like the world came to an end, Austin, Texas, had the ice storm. And I talked to a guy, and he's like, look, man, I cannot get to the airport to go to Dallas. And I'm like, I get it, man. No problem. I mean, my kids are out of school. Austin's roads are shut down. The apocalypse has come. That happens, right? You have a mother that died, or you have an ill family member. I get it, man. Those things happen, and no one's gonna fault you for that. But if you say you have to go down to get your tires fixed, that's a problem, right? So guys, you see the link at the bottom? Did y'all take a picture of that? I've had this blog up there since 2014. I get a little over 100 views on this every single day. It's been shared over 3,000 or 4,000 times, maybe more than that. But these are the questions that are going to guaranteed to be asked every single solitary time. So, the first thing I'm going to ask is, what kind of roles are you looking for? You guys need to be able to articulate that. If they're a good recruiter, they're going to ask you these questions every single time because they want to know if this is a good fit for you. I don't want to talk about the specific role. I want to get to know you. What makes you spend? Back to the original question, what makes you happy? Believe me when I tell you, every single solitary time they're going to ask you what happened at your last company. Do you know how to answer that in a succinct way that's not going to make you look like you're not the right fit for the job? Every single time they're going to ask that question, why are you not there? Or why are you looking? I can 100% guarantee that. What is your time frame? Think about that. Well, if you have a trip coming up, say, or if you can't go to work for 2 months, make sure you know that. But don't make yourself look desperate. I mean, I can go to work within 2 weeks, what have you. They'll ask you about travel. They'll ask you, are you able to relocate? Know these answers. These are going to come every single time. What hours are you able to work? For me, it better not be too much outside 8 to 5. I have young kids. I mean, I got to go to take my kids to do Boy Scouts. I mean, there's things that life goes on, right? So, but for some people, it's like, well, I work better at night. So, think about those things because those are going to be asked. Who wants to work remote? Every single time this is going to be asked. And think about back to the point we talked about earlier about commute. I mean, so if a job's in South Austin and you live in Round Rock, I wouldn't take it, right? That's just too much for me to want to do at this point in time. And then, like I said, going to voicemail, what do you know about the company, right? What do you know about the role specifically? What do you know about the leadership? The more you know about the company, the better it's going to be for you. So take that site, think about it. But those are the questions that are going to be asked every single time in a screening interview. And then what next? What's the question they're going to ask? Let's shout it. Money, right? Money. We'll get back to I missed the slide. I'll put them back. But yeah, here. What money do you want to make? Right? So think about this. Salary is just not money. It's all the things, right? It's benefits. It's time off. It's work-life balance. It's 401k. It's stock. If it's IPO, these are all things that are considered in money, right? And believe me, that when they're calling you, they're thinking about the all-in cost. Who's been a business owner? Right? You understand that it's not just the dollar amount. It's, man, I'm going to spend so much on benefits on this guy. I'm going to give him a car. I'm going to get all these things. And those are part of the salary, right? So think about those things. But what salary you desire, you guys need to know what role you're going after. You need to have an idea of the kind of job that you're looking for, what's hot, and how to answer that question, because it will get asked. So I'm going to ask you this. I want you to look at these questions right here, and I'm going to ask you which one you think's the best. Is it A, tell them what you earned at your last role? B, tell them that you'll take less for the right role? C, throw out a random number that probably sounds good? D, tell them 20% above your current pay if you're employed? E, ask them what the budget is for this role. F, say I'm flexible and not aware of that and not answer the question at all. G, ignore the question and ask more questions about the role. E? Who's got E? You know what my answer is? You're going to hate it. It depends. Really, every single one of those questions are okay. Honestly, I've heard them all, and it depends on your situation, and it depends on a lot of things. So what we're going to do now is we're going to have some fun. I told you guys to be awake, right? Because the bottom line is, it depends on where you are in life. It depends on the situation. It depends on a lot of things. So there's not one right answer. I wish there was. I wish I could say, G. That's the answer you need to ask every single time, but it's not. So I need a microphone. All right, cool. Who feels comfortable coming on stage? All right, so remember, what you say in the screening interview may not be asked again until the end of the interview process. It's up to you to bring it up again and again and again. Because how many times, we're not quite there yet. I'll get you up here. So we need to think about these things because it's our livelihood, right? How many people have gone through the interview process, it's been briefly talked about, and at the very end, that nothing else has been said about it, and you're like, that's $20,000 less than I wanted. It happens a lot. So here's scenario one. My eyes are so bad I can't see it, so I'm going to have to look over here. You've been unemployed for a while. You have a good work history, but at no fault of your own, you get laid off from a company that you've been working for a long time. You found it difficult to find your next opportunity. The skills align. There are multiple candidates. People have been disqualifying you because you're overqualified. The question comes with, what are your salary requirements? Who's brave enough to say, this is me? Yeah, right? So do you think and we'll give you some more scenarios, but this is one that comes up frequently, right? So let's talk about this for a minute. What would you say would be the best answer for this question? What is your salary requirements?
Well, typically what I do is in terms of researching the job and the role, and I usually say something like, based on my research, I think the range for this role is 100 to 125K. Is that right? Is that in line with your budget?
That's a good answer, right? Be confident in what you're saying. You could say a number of things. You could say, I made X amount of dollars at Dell. They paid me this because I've done these 3 things. Is this kind of what you're looking to pay for this role? And they can say, we're not looking to pay that much for a role. We're looking for someone much junior. Then it may not be the right role for you. It's okay. Like I told you, there's more job openings than there are people. So for the specific roles, if it's the wrong fit, eliminate them too. It's okay. Let's get down to the nuts and bolts of it. But I don't want you to spend weeks and weeks with an interview that's just not going to pay for it, what you're looking to make. So that's a good answer. Anybody else?
Raise your hand if you want to answer, and let me give you the microphone. Did somebody? There we go.
And no answer is wrong. We're working through this together. So this is a scenario that comes up all the time.
I mean, as a general rule, I know what they'll budget already, so I'll try to undersell that figure by about 5%. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. But normally, I'll get this answer instead of overqualified. What they'll do is they'll give me an answer that's really that answer, but they'll phrase it, "Oh, you wouldn't be happy here." It's
Or
same
the
kind of
culture
thing.
fit, you wouldn't be a good culture fit or
Right.
something like that. So knowing that it's a hot market, you should ask for what you're worth, is my thought. There's a lot of times when I'm out there, and I talked to a guy in Minnesota, and it's been a couple of years ago, and he had a really good background. He asked for something $30,000 below market value. And I was like, it made me feel like, what's wrong with this guy? What's wrong with him? So the bottom line is know confidently what the market pays. Tell them what you made your last job. Give it your best. And if they can't pay it, then it's the next job. But I would ask a ton of questions around the company, the culture, what they're looking for in an individual. That way they feel comfortable with you. If there are multiple candidates, they want to talk about themselves. So you got to bring that out of them, right? Say, listen, the money's a piece of it, but there's a lot of questions I would like to ask for you, and then keep them engaged too, because they like talking about themselves. Do you guys agree, or anything else that you'd like to add, or any other questions? Yes, sir.
So the question I'm rolling around in my mind has to do with longevity, and again, this desire. It, like you said, it depends on so many things. You may be slightly overqualified, but if you come in at the top, and there's a downturn in the company's fortunes or the economy, oops, I'm at the top, I'm expensive, I've only been here a year. How do you want to position yourself so that, times do change, you cannot predict that.
It's not your fault.
Right, and it's not your fault, but you like the company, and you'd like to stay there and not be the first person they look at because you came in so high.
Right, so you're asking me, this happened to you, or you're asking me when you're negotiating the salary for the next job?
Yeah, you're coming in and you're trying to find what that price point is for them, that yes, you have more qualifications than.
But you're concerned about longevity at this point.
Yeah.
Okay.
You want a fair market price for yourself, but also not to be the most expensive guy.
Well, here's my thought around that. In 2018, you are with the job for us. There are no perfect candidates allowed, Like, I'm going to Gateway, there's no perfect people allowed, there's no perfect candidates. We are hired today to do a specified job for a length of time. That's it. Can you do this job for a year, and then you may be looking for something else? We'd all love longevity, but here's the reality of the 2018. It's the gig economy. Maybe you will get laid off, but you got to continually network, because when it's next time, you have something else. Does that help?
Yeah, I understand the short, there's no more 30 years.
No, there's not. I wish there were, but there's just not.
I have a question. I've received advice saying that, typically this comes up early in the process. Let's say you're speaking to the HR recruiter, not even the hiring manager yet or anything like that. So people advise me, try to defer conversation about salary as much as you can, like in the whole interview process, like push it out. Or how do you feel about that, and what sort of response would you give to kind of defer the salary conversation?
I disagree. And I'll tell you why. Because money is important. And you do not want to get too far down the interview process without knowing where you stand. And if you defer it long enough, you're going to be down this process, and then you're going to be at the end going, wait. So might as well, just like they're going to knock you out, knock them out. So I would ask them questions specific. What's your budget? This is what I made in my last job. This is what I think I can bring to the table. Is this within your range? No. Boom. Done. All right. Next scenario. This happens a lot too, especially for me in sales recruiting. You've been a top producer at your company. You are well received by your peers. The company is not doing well, and you realize it is the company you want to be with long term. It's not the company you want to be with long term. You get called by a recruiter to talk about an opportunity that aligns with your skills. The company is hot, and there's a lot of upward mobility. They ask you, what are your salary requirements? So I get this a lot. I'm going after people that are employed, right? You know what the answer is for a lot of people? 20% increase. Well, it's not happening. Didn't I say at the very beginning that employers think they have upper hand, and then employees think they have upper hand? I'd love to say that's going to happen, but it's not. It's just not. So if you want to make a move, what's market value? Back to the original point. What are people paying for this role? And then if you want to make a move because there's no upward mobility, if this has upward mobility, then I think you need to really think about what you're willing to take, and then take it if it's the right opportunity. It depends on other things, 401k, stock. It depends on the benefits. It depends on the culture. It depends on longevity. It depends on all these things. But I see this a lot this year. I see a lot of people wanting to make changes, but realize you're making a change for you, not because you want a salary increase. Any questions, or anybody have anything else to add?
Right here.
I think it makes sense if it's a
Hold on a minute.
lateral change.
Let me, she had her hand up first. I'll get to you in a second.
So in one of our breakout sessions, I was told for the first time that it has become illegal for them to ask you, what did you earn in your last position? I agree with all this, but I wanted to learn if that's true.
Not yet. So in New York and Massachusetts, it's illegal to ask the question, but in Texas, it is still legal. I think it will change, but I think people will continue to ask the question. I don't know how, but you're absolutely 100% correct. It's becoming illegal in places.
In your scenario, I agree that you can't ask to 20% if it's a lateral move, but if you're looking for a promotion, higher order, more seniority, if you're currently employed, let's just say hypothetically you're fat, dumb, and happy, you're okay, then it would be reasonable for me to talk to a recruiter and say, look, I'm okay where I'm at, but if you got a more senior position, a VP, an exec, then in order for me to justify this move, I'm going to need 20%. Do you have anything that fits into that?
I wouldn't talk about 20% at all. I would just say, listen, I'm looking for the next step in my career. I'll show you what I've done in my roles, and I think that It'll prove that I'm ready for the next step here, willing to talk to my supervisors. Most people will see if you've been an individual contributor for a long time and just excelled, they're going to probably be reaching out to you for the next level in your career, right? I recruit for a company here in Austin that has this exact scenario all the time, that they hired somebody that was an individual contributor, they gave them a raise, but I would avoid using the word 20%.
Yeah, it's arbitrary, yeah. I mean, but
Yep.
I guess in making it more personal, in my case, I've got an opportunity that looks really good, except for the salary is below, certainly below what I was making, and below, I think, what the market research shows. But it's got so many good attributes about it, I'm inclined to take it very seriously. But I'm also going to, no matter what, be doing the constant networking and realizing that a year from now I may be in the same situation. So if you take a dip down, it would seem to be appropriate to look for something that can get you back up once you've reestablished active working status.
I agree. It may be a struggle, but I mean, you are in a situation where you have the upper hand, right? You're employed, you're doing well, but if in this situation, if you think the company's not gonna do well, I don't know, I mean, you have to see what's out there and see if people are willing to pay that much. And, it's a tough scenario.
Okay.
Back to it depends, right? Clear as mud.
We talked about income here. Let's talk about age.
About age?
Age, yeah. So what year did you graduate from college? Well, what that does is say, how old are you? Buzz.
Yeah. No, ageism is real. And we can talk a little further about this. And it has affected a lot of my friends recently, and I wish it was not real, but it is. I think it's important to answer the question of what you need. There are a lot of people that, because of age, get stuck out of work for a long period of times, and it breaks my heart because I think they have the skills to do the job. But I think it's best to find out what the market value is and ask for it.
Well, okay, you talked about interviews. Let's talk about an online application, for instance. If you don't feel like you have a quality reference to apply for a job, for instance, you don't have a big enough network of people to refer you to a particular job. In my case, I'm looking for a transition. So I don't necessarily have people who are going to tell me that I'm, have quite highly qualified experience for this particular position, but I'm confident that I could sit down with them and convince them, wow, this guy's pretty sharp. We might want to think about it. But if I'm filling out an online application and one of the questions is, what year did you graduate from college? You're going to be SOL if you put down the truth.
It's hard. Yeah, I mean, my suggestion to you, the first suggestion is avoid the application process if you can. I know that's a generic answer, but I would tell you that if there's any way you can have an in with the company, it could be somebody who knows somebody through LinkedIn. I think that's probably the best way to do it. There are ways to leave off your high school and college education, when you graduated, and I strongly suggest that you do that. Some of the best hires I have made are people with a lot of wise wisdom. I'll come back to this one, though, because that's a great question. It's one of the toughest ones to answer, too. There's not a great answer. But I can tell you this, that there are people that need your skills, and the best way to do it is not through the online application, is through getting to know somebody that will happily introduce you and get that resume in front of somebody. Easier said than done, right? I don't know if anybody in this room has this situation, but this kind of addresses what you're talking about. You've just completed your MBA. You've spent most of your career in marketing. You have a desire to move into finance. I'll just do a 360, right? You are polished. You fit the culture. What do you want to make? I had this scenario not recent when I got a master's in HR. I thought, man, everybody wants to hire me. This is going to be great. Well, no, they didn't. It was the hardest scenario. I went through 57 interviews or whatever it was, and my wife was pregnant. I've done a whole presentation on this, but it was horrible. So my suggestion to you is, what is your bottom line? Understand that you're going to have to take a step backwards to go forwards, and understand maybe what an entry-level role would pay, because you're going to have to do that. And I only have 10 minutes, so we're going to kind of speed through some of this stuff from here. But any questions on this or anything else you may want to add? Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Scenario, and I guess another question is for the mothers going back to work is another issue I've had, because I left in 2006, the workforce, and then started my own business in 2012, but I've been flipping houses. Do you suggest, part of what you tell them your skill set is, should you put together a portfolio of the houses so you can actually show them what you've done? Or how do you prove that you have the project management skills to do something like that? When I left in 2006, I was a comptroller.
Being a mother is probably one of the most important jobs in the world, I think. My wife is a mother and also running our company, and I understand that. Hopefully somebody will understand that, but the best thing I can tell you is keep your education level to par, and utilize that to help bridge the conversation. But back to your point, it's going to take somebody that knows you to give you that opportunity. It's not going to be an online application at all. This one sucks. So you were fired at your last role. You want to stay in the same industry, but it simply does not. You don't make your sales numbers. You feel confident you can make your numbers again with your next company. You know what roles you pay and you're trying to go and work for a competitor. The recruiter does not know that you've been fired yet. The recruiter asks what you want to earn. Who's been fired? Right? So I think most people in their career have been fired at some point. My quick advice on this is you don't have to tell them you've been fired. I would get some references in line immediately with some individuals that will speak to your character and who you are, and then be confident, know what it pays, and go out there and sell the heck out of yourself. But this happens. Who? Yes, sir.
To that last point, suppose they want references from your prior employer that you just left, the job from which you were fired. How
Yep.
do you address that?
Give a peer. Don't give your boss, or talk to your boss. Make sure you have a good reference, though. I mean, this happens. Believe me, I've been fired, so just get somebody who will say something good about you. And there's going to be someone out there that you've impacted positively that's going to give you a good reference. Don't ever have to say you're fired. It's not, don't worry about it.
But do you think that they're going to say, well, why isn't he telling me his supervisors?
They may, but then you don't get the job, move on. Right? Whoever hates their job and your wife is saying, I'm going to divorce you if you don't find another job. They're asking you to do ridiculous things like come in on the weekends. You come home tired and late, and you must make a change quickly because you can't be without a paycheck. So my suggestion here is, what's your bottom line? Make sure what you can live on. Take a job that makes you feel comfortable. But understand, if you take a step backwards too far, then you could be hurting yourself in future situations. We got like 5 minutes left? Okay. Let's run some. So we're clear as mud now. I've taught you everything you know about salary negotiation, right? Hopefully I've given you a few tidbits, but I know that everybody in this room can relate to one of these things, right? Okay. Things to remember, right? I want you to make sure you understand everything about the job. Make sure that you know what the expectations are. Make sure you're not moving from one mess to another mess, because that happens a lot. Make sure you're compensated fairly and with what you're able to be paid. And then do not leave the interview without constantly asking them over and over and over, what does this job pay? Because there may be the screening interview, the dreaded screening interview, and you never talk about it again, and then you get an offer that's less, right? It stinks. Know your market value. So you get selected. They said, okay, great, we're moving forward with you from the screening interview. And I'm gonna take this so fast. We've just gone from the screening interview to getting hired, right? But you're at the very, very end. I want you to ask about next steps. I want you to know the people you'll be interviewing in the process. Make sure you know how many people are going to be interviewed in the process. I want you to follow up with everybody. Guys, don't forget about handwritten letters at this point in time. It's too slow. Write an email the second you get off the phone. I'd love to get handwritten letters, but it's not fast enough. And know that you're in their salary range, okay? Last things. When you get selected as a finalist, do you feel like they want you? You need to feel like they want them as well. Like I said, is this something you can do for a period of time? Not just for 10 years, but right now, today, for a year. Is this something you can do? Because that's where we're at in this economy. There'll be something else out there. Can you work with these people? Are these people that you can stand? Are they going to drive you crazy? Are these bosses that you just can work with? Otherwise, walk away. What are you willing to take? What are you willing to do? I'm going to give you a few do nots because these drive me nuts. Don't, at the end, throw out a number that you have not been discussing. Oh, man, we've been talking about 70 grand. I want 90. What? Wait a minute here. What's going on? It doesn't work. If you've been following this process the whole way, then this should be no surprise to them or you. Don't ask for ridiculous things at the end. I need to take a 3-month vacation to Europe this summer. So can we start in September? Wait. I need someone in February. This really happens. You know what? I like this job, but I need a $50,000 bonus check. This really happened at the final stage. Make sure you have this stuff lined out, ironed down every single step of the way. If you have any things like drug tests or you have a background issue, make sure you do not get to the final stage and say, man, really, I got a DWI. I hate it, but I just want to let you know. If there's something that needs to be address it now so you don't get to this stage and it happens, right? Guys, at this point in time, I had a candidate this year that was going to get the offer 4 times. And the candidate said to the hiring manager, I want to speak to this person. So, why? Well, because I want to speak to that person. They said, well, I want to speak to someone else. Well, why? I'm going to offer you the job. Then he got the off job and turned it down. Totally burned a bridge. So believe me when I say, just try to be cognizant of that. I mean, don't burn bridges. So last thing, this is my devotional, but this comes from Joshua, and he said, have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened. Do not be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Amen. So, guys, this is a frustrating, difficult time. Salary's hard, but God's going to be with you through this entire process. Trust me, whatever battles that you have in life, Jesus will be there to help you through these problems. And I promise you're going to come out on the other side of the fence. And it's just a short amount of time. It could be, if you look at 18 months or 2 years on the big scheme of things in 70 years' life, it's a blip, right? So I recruit for sales and marketing and HR. This is how you can find me. That's my cell phone. That's my office number, my Facebook and LinkedIn. If you guys would like to talk further, please call me, please email me, please text me. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. I I wish I had a square answer for every single thing we discussed today, but I don't. It depends. It's the bottom line.